Howdy there, friends. This is Old Red Roberts. I'm down here in Kentucky, back in the hills, back where Ralph Stanley and Kenny Baker and Patty Loveless, all those people are from right now. I'm back here and I'm having a good time, living a good life. But there was a time, a long time ago, matter of fact, it's been 55 years now. 55 years. It was the spring of 1962. Me and my father were down at Sunset Park in right down around Oxford, Pennsylvania. That's a hillbilly, an old-time hillbilly and country music bluegrass park. And they have shows every week, every Sunday. And after the shows, during intermissions and stuff like that, we'd all go out in the parking lots, out in the back fields, and we'd bring our instruments out, pick, sing, jam, as they say nowadays. Well, it was at one of these Sundays that in the spring of '62 I first met Jimmy Moore. Jimmy Moore, he struck me as a kind man, a generous man, a good picker and singer, and a real bluegrass boy. He was from Dunn, North Carolina, and that's south of like Roanoke Rapids, Virginia, down past there in North Carolina. Dunn, North Carolina. He moved up to New Jersey in the early 60s and started working for a concrete company. He had just gotten out of the Air Force and he was working for a concrete company up there. And he met another fella, a mandolin picker, accordion player, played accordion, played mandolin, by the name of Bobby West. He was from Pittston, Pennsylvania originally, a coal cracker, but he came down there to New Jersey to try to find work, and they were both working at a concrete company. Well, Jimmy came down to Sunset Park and tried to recruit musicians because he had nobody else up there to play with. He had no fiddle players, no banjo pickers, and he was something for people to play in his band. Well, I was 16 at the time, and playing in a band sounded good to me. So my daddy, who was a guitar player, Tex Roberts, and a girl bass player from down around Sunset Park by the name of June Campbell, originally from Mountain City, Tennessee, and a dobro player by the name of Sonny Howery, a real bombastic type dobro player. We all went up and we'd go up to New Brunswick, New Jersey, and spend the weekend over top of a bar by the name of the Doghouse Bar. Now that Doghouse Bar has a lot to do with Jimmy Moore and bluegrass music in the state of New Jersey. They'd have us come up there and we'd spend the weekend and play the weekend at the Doghouse Bar. And at nighttime we had a room because they had like men's rooms, working men's rooms upstairs over top of the bar, and we'd all get us a room there, and they'd let us stay for free, plus they'd feed us and pay us a little bit, and we got to pick. Well, it started out very meagerly. By that I mean we had really no PA system. They had no mic stands. They put a little mic stand up on top of a keg of beer, and that's where we play from. Well, that lasted for a few weeks, and maybe a month, and then a couple of the people bailed out. Sonny Howery, the dobro player, couldn't make it up that much, and June Campbell was still pretty far away, and she had to bail out. But my dad and myself, we weren't really that far. We lived in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, so we weren't too far from going up to New Brunswick to play. So we started playing in the band, and they had their first official band in 1962, and in that band was Jimmy Moore on guitar, Bobby West on mandolin. I was playing the 5-string banjo. My dad, Tex, was playing rhythm guitar, and a fellow that was a full-blooded Cherokee Indian from North Carolina by the name of Jimmy Williams was the bass player at the time. Well, playing at the Doghouse Bar was an experience, if there ever was one. I'm talking about drunks, I'm talking about fights, I'm talking about people trying to steal everybody else's girl, and just the whole barroom scene, if you can imagine. And but that was the only place we had to play back then. Really, was barroom bluegrass, we called it back then. I remember one time Ace, he was the owner of the bar, the bartender, the bouncer. Ace, he decided to he heard about a band contest down at New River Ranch, that's south of Sunset Park. And he decided to load up a whole load of people and take them down there, and we would go down and play in the band contest, and we'd win the band contest. Well, after we got down there, it just so happens that the fellow that was running New River Ranch, unbeknownst to anybody else, really hired at that time Jack Cook and his band to come up from Baltimore to get in this band contest just so he'd have a little bit of name recognition. And he guaranteed Jack Cook that he would win the band contest and get the prize money. But it just so happens that we had brought a whole busload of people down from New Jersey. So when they said raise your hand, and everybody clapped for, you want this person to win or that person to win, we were overwhelmingly the favorites to win, but they gave it to old Jack Cook anyhow. So that was one of the funny things that happened back in the day. Also up there at the Doghouse Bar, we ran shows. We ran bluegrass shows. We had the original Stanley brothers, Ralph and Carter Stanley, come in there. Reno and Smiley, Jimmy Martin and the Sunny Mountain Boys, the Osborne brothers. We had, matter of fact, we had the Osborne brothers come in and play there, and they were scheduled to play. It just so happened that weekend that they were scheduled to play. They were scheduled to play on Sunday. John F. Kennedy was assassinated that Friday. And they called up and said, is the show still on? We told them, yes, the show's still on. So they came up there and they played, and while we were sitting in the bar room watching TV, ready for the show to go on, that's when Lee Harvey Oswald was shot and killed by Jack Ruby as we were sitting there watching it with Bobby and Sonny the Osborne brothers. It was a crazy time. There was lots of music. It was lively, to say the least. Lots of picking, lots of singing. It was raw. It was full of life, full of feeling, and it was a great place to play. Some of the other places that we played in back in the day, the owner of the concrete company that Jimmy Moore and Bobby West were working for decided to buy a bar, so he bought him a bar room over near Cranberry, New Jersey, and they named it the Rosewood Inn. We had shows there, and brought in Reno and Smiley and other top bluegrass bands of the day. And we would play 3-4 nights a week. We'd play Wednesday nights and Friday nights, Saturday nights, and Sundays during the day. I was still in high school at the time, so it was quite an experience for me. I had to go to school after we played Wednesday night. And I made a deal with some of my school teachers to let me sleep the first 2 or 3 periods during high school on Thursday mornings because I had played out on Wednesday nights. Some of the places that we played the White Lion Inn in Old Bridge, New Jersey. And we hired Bill Monroe to come up and play there. And when Bill showed up, Ralph Rensler was his manager, and he said, Bill's got a guitar player with him, and we'd like to let them play a set. How about if we bring this guitar player in? It won't cost you any extra. It won't cost you anything. At that time, we had paid Bill Monroe $300. That's the most we ever paid a band to come in and play. They all paid for less money back in the day when they were just coming through the area. Well, Ralph Rensler, we asked him, who is this guitar player? He says, well, it's a fellow from down south by the name of Doc Watson. So Bill and Doc got up and played a set, and we switched between Bill Monroe's Bluegrass Boys and Jimmy Moore and the Blue Mountain Boys, and we played all those sets, and it was a great time. Got Doc Watson for free. We also played places like over near Trenton, New Jersey, a place called the White Horse Bowling Academy, and we backed up Hilo Brown and Mac Wiseman over there. We played the Starlight Room in Manville, New Jersey. I remember we had a lot of people come in there and play and sing with us. One of the other things that happened to us back then is we got wind that Ted Mack was was having auditions for the Ted Mack's Original Amateur Hour on live TV on one of the major channels. So we went and auditioned for that, and the good thing about it was 5 or 6 baton twirlers showed up, 5 or 6 rock and roll bands, 5 or 6 accordion players, 5 or 6 opera singers, but 1 bluegrass band showed up. So they picked 1 rock and roll band, 1 baton twirler, 1 accordion player, and since we were the only bluegrass band, we got picked, and we performed it on the Ted Mack's Original Amateur Hour. We were on there the first week in January. They broadcast that, 1966, first week in January, and what a deal that was. And some of the band members that Jimmy Moore had down through the years, we had a great band at one time that was consisted of Mel Clark on fiddle. He was playing fiddle for us for a while, and Jimmy brought in one of his old Air Force buddies, Lou Swaggart, to come in. We had twin fiddles at one time. After Jimmy Williams left on bass, my good buddy from high school, Charlie Smith, came in and played bass with us, and I think that was our best band, with twin fiddles, Charlie on bass, and Bobby and myself and Jimmy. Had a great time. Had a radio show back then, sponsored by, it was right around New Brunswick there someplace. I forget what the name of the radio station was, but we played on the radio show. We played the college over there. We played coffee houses, bar rooms, and one strange thing about Jimmy Moore, we never practiced. I never practiced with Jimmy Moore. He would just say, Red, kick this off, or Bobby, kick that off, and you'd have to just jump right in. And you just look to see where his capo was to figure out what key you were in, because he never told you. He would just start talking. He was a great MC. He would talk to people and just make them feel at home, tell jokes. A great songwriter. And he had some great songs. We recorded a few back then on just little local record labels. Later on, after I had left the band, he recorded Play a Little Bluegrass Music, I think, and bluegrass guitar on a Brunswick label, which was a minor label of Decca Records. And I had left Jimmy Moore in 1965. I got drafted into the Army. So in October of 65, I left the band, had to go into the Army, as well as Charlie Smith got signed up. He knew he was getting drafted. He signed up, went into the Navy. And I cherish my time that I had with Jimmy Moore, even though he was only a few years older than I was, not that many. I guess maybe 5, 6, 7 years older than I was. He was married and had a child, and I was just a kid. And he was like a father, a big brother, and I just loved the bluegrass music we made together. And I'll always remember Jimmy fondly. He's been a friend of mine all those years. And I was so sorry to hear his passing away. And like they always say, he was Mr. Bluegrass in the state of New Jersey. God bless Jimmy Moore.